Let's add a paragraph right before column 1. Go to your HTML and add a paragraph element between that h2 float property and div. Class equals column. Let's say in this paragraph, the 3 columns in this section are inside this article container. Using the float property moves them as far to the left or right within the container. Now you've seen what happens when we use float left. Well, let's temporarily make it so that these 3 divs float to the right. In your CSS, change float left to float right. Save that and refresh your page preview. Now you'll see that it's in reverse order. What's up with that? Well, here's the deal. When your web browser is reading the HTML, it encounters column 1 first. And because we set column to float to the right, it's pushing column 1 all the way to the right first. And it stops right there because remember, we have a 30 pixel padding all around main, the white background portion, but then we also have a background, or not background, we have a margin to the right of 20 pixels, and you can verify that by hovering over it. And then, okay, column 2, it gets read next, and it pushes itself all the way to the right, but stops right here because there's a margin, and then also because column 1's already there. And then same thing with column 3, it gets read next, but column 2 and column 1 are already there. Let's make this float to the left again and continue with that paragraph. Also, since this bottom section contained floated not contained, it actually contains floated elements only, the footer overlapped with it. So we had to use the overflow fix. Now it looks good. Save your HTML and CSS and refresh, and there's our paragraph right there. Now I want to add another paragraph, but this time I want to add that after this 3rd column right here. And in this 3rd paragraph, I will ask a question. So pay attention to where I'm putting this paragraph. It's right after the 3rd div, but still inside that article. We'll just put a paragraph there and say, where am I going to end up? Good question, right? Let's see. Save your HTML and refresh your page preview. And now you'll notice that this paragraph that appeared in the HTML code right after this 3rd div is floating to the right of this. This is what I meant in my previous video when I said that other content will float around. Even though this paragraph is a block element, it's able to wrap itself around these floated elements. As you're thinking about your website project, this is how you can start positioning different elements on there. You can make things float side by side, but then you could also have block elements that just float along with them. Now we have this property called clear, And when you set the clear property to left, you're saying that the left-hand side should not touch any other elements in the same containing element. That means that if things are floating to the left, then it will not touch that and it will push itself away from that. And then the opposite will be true for the right side. If you say clear right, then the right hand side should not touch any. And then you can set it for both, or by default, it'll be none. Elements can touch either side. Let's do something about, let's make it to where column 2 does not allow anything to be on its left hand side. So we would have to set a clear left declaration to this div right here. To do that, let's go to the second div. And let's add another class there. Remember, you could apply more than one class to an opening to an opening tag. Just separate those with a space. Let's say X left, as in we don't want anything on the left side. Save your HTML, go back to your CSS, and let's create that .x left class selector, and we will say clear left. Save your HTML and CSS, refresh your page preview, and now column 2 does not have anything to its left in the same container because of that clear left property. That made it to where this paragraph that used to be to the right of column 3 push itself as far to the left as it can because there's room for it now. It stopped right here though because column 1 has a margin to the right of 20 pixels. And column 1 and 2, right now, they do not have a space in between, but we could also add a margin there. Go to your CSS and let's just say margin bottom 20px. Now we have a margin right there. Let's add some more to this paragraph. Go back to your HTML and let's say, where am I going to end up? Well, it appears to the right of column 1 because there is room for this paragraph to flow around, and because column 1 is a floated element. This is what happens when you use the float property on an element. It is similar to the concept of text wrap. This is all the content that I have, like unique content for this paragraph, but I want to make it really long. So let's select everything in this paragraph so far, copy that, and then paste it twice so that we have a very long paragraph. Save that and refresh your page preview. And now you'll see that the paragraph continues to float around the floated elements down to the right of column 3. And if we add another paragraph right after this, it will end up there. However, I want to do 2 more things. I want to make it to where this paragraph ends up below these 3 columns, and then I want to add a last paragraph, and then we're done. So I said I want to make it so that this paragraph, where am I going to end up, is below. Well, that means that I don't want anything to float to the left of it or to have anything on its left-hand side. That means that I just have to apply that class that I already created for that purpose, which is X left. Save that and refresh. And now it goes all the way down here because we said we don't want anything on its left-hand side. This shows you that the clear property works on both floated elements like column 2 and then non-floating elements like this paragraph. So let's say something about that, and then let's wrap this lab up. Let's say that if the previous paragraph is no longer to the right of column 1, then it is because of the X left selector. This shows that the clear property can also apply to non-floating elements. Save that, refresh your page preview, there's our last paragraph, and bam, this is lab 4. Your next step now is to go to Blackboard and click on the lab 4 submission instructions.